Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is politics reporter Sara Dorn. Sara, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you for having me.
A new poll has come out that shows how Americans are feeling about the historic indictment of former President Donald Trump. What can you tell us?
Yes, so there were two polls that were taken in the days after the Manhattan grand jury voted to indict him on Thursday. One was a CNN SSRS poll that was released yesterday. That was Monday, which is the day before. His arraignment is expected today, Tuesday, in Manhattan Criminal Court. And it showed that 60% of respondents believe that he should have been indicted. Now, a poll taken again in the days after his indictment, but that was released on Sunday, so a day before the CNN SSRS poll, showed that 45% of Americans believe he should have been indicted. So, and that poll was taken by ABC Ipsos. So there is a bit of uncertainty there. At the same time, in the CNN poll, 37% of the respondents believe that he did something illegal, which, is a fairly low number. And that is compared to 33% who believe that he did something unethical, but not illegal. So there's a lukewarm feeling, I would say, among Americans about this indictment.
Republicans, especially Donald Trump himself, have a little more than a lukewarm feeling about it, and they've been coming out, calling it a witch hunt, calling it politically motivated. Do Americans feel that way as well?
So it's interesting. Despite 60% of Americans saying that he should have been indicted, 76% also believe that politics were at play in this investigation. And as you mentioned, Trump has pointed to the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, his left-leaning politics. He is a Democrat, and claiming that, this is election interference and this was done to hurt his chances of being elected president in 2024. The CNN SSRS poll that found that 76% of respondents think this is politically motivated didn't really delve into the reasons as to why, but that is, a significantly high number. At the same time, the results are starkly different across party lines, and we can talk about that farther in our conversation.
Exactly. I actually want to get to that next, because let's rewind a little bit. Heading into the 2020 election, Democrats and moderate Republicans largely voted for President Joe Biden because they wanted to move on. They wanted to move on from, a president that has injected himself in the news cycle. It seems like 24/7. We're back at that place. I mean, just yesterday, you turn on any news channel, you're seeing chopper footage of President Trump's plane, landing and getting to New York. And do you think that, or what in the poll, how do Americans feel about whether or not this is strengthening U.S. democracy?
So there was a divide, split 31% of respondents, again, in the CNN SSRS poll that was released yesterday and taken after he was indicted on Thursday. 31% believe that this strengthens U.S. democracy, and 31% believe that it doesn't. So there's a lot of uncertainty there about how this case is going to play out and affect these, extreme political divisions that we've been seeing since Trump was elected in 2016.
It's been a highly partisan time since 2016, and I'm sure that Democrats and Republicans feel very different about this indictment, and I'm sure it's divided along party lines. What can you tell us about that?
So the ABC Ipsos poll, again, that was released on Sunday and taken after his indictment. 88% of Democrats believe that Trump should have been indicted, compared to 16% of Republicans. So some stark differences there. And I think that just speaks to just Republicans, maybe they're not decided on whether they are going to vote for Donald Trump, but it seems that there is a lot of fatigue among the Republican Party surrounding the various investigations into him.
Now let's have our sights set on 2024. He remains the front runner. How is this impacting his 2024 run? And let's talk about that base specifically. You and I have had many conversations, and you always say his base remains unmoved. Is that true now that we actually see an indictment?
I think so. And, many politicos have observed, and I've mentioned this before in our previous conversations, that yes, he still does have a firm hold on that base and, most of his most fervent supporters. But those supporters are not enough to help him win the election against a Democratic candidate if he does become the GOP nominee next year. He would need to, gin up support from some more moderate Republicans. And I think that as, the next few months and even today, when we see the indictment and the specific charges against him and the allegations of exactly what he did, and there are also several other investigations against him, I think that that is really going to determine, how this will affect his chances of re-election moving forward. Obviously we have seen GOP lawmakers rallying behind him, and many of them, Lindsey Graham is one who comes to mind. The senator from South Carolina has said that he believes that this will end in Trump being found innocent, and that he will go on to win the election, and this, being a boon to that bid. So, and at the same time, Trump has been capitalizing on it himself. He sent out fundraising emails in the moments after the news of his indictment broke on Thursday. I reported yesterday, his advisor said that they've raised $7 million for his campaign, which is like $2 million a day since the indictment on Thursday. So he's definitely trying to spin this and, cast this as just another example of the justice system's weaponization against Republicans.
And you and I talked about when he first announced, it was kind of more a subdued speech. There wasn't that intensity that we usually see. Fast forward to today, fast forward to the past few weeks. He's on the A block of every news channel. You listen to any podcast today, they're talking about Trump. I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about Donald Trump. Is this indictment a good thing for his campaign?
It's possible, and he's certainly trying to spin it that way. As you mentioned, he had a fairly subdued announcement in November. His announcement speech was widely viewed as lacking the energy of his typical rallies. Now, 2 weekends ago, not this past weekend, but the previous weekend, he had a rally in Waco, which was sort of a return to his old campaign style. Very, very bombastic. He played January 6th footage. The entire rally was really about how he is under attack, and he cast this as not only an attack on himself, but his supporters and his base as well. Just Democrats, attacking MAGA Republicans. And there were thousands of people at his Waco rally, and it was a renewed show of force, I would say, for Trump.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been consistently polling right behind Trump, even though he hasn't announced his presidential run yet, if he is going to announce. Has this indictment helped him at all in the polls, hurt him at all? How is that impacting DeSantis?
So the indictment does not appear to have had much effect on Trump's standing among voters. In the CNN SSRS poll that I've been mentioning, his approval rating actually climbed 2 points since the group's previous poll taken in January. He's up to 34%. And in a PBS Marist poll that was taken after news broke that Trump was expected to be indicted, but before the Manhattan grand jury actually voted to indict him, an important distinction, Trump was polling at 50%. 50% of Republican-leaning voters said that they plan to cast their ballots for Trump in next year's primary compared to 24% who said that they expected to vote for DeSantis. And that's that 24% is consistent with DeSantis's standing in previous polls, but Trump had actually gained 4 points since the group's previous poll, which I believe was taken in February. So I think that is less about the indictment and more about the fact that Trump has been able to weather some of the storms and controversies that he saw shortly after announcing his third run for the White House in November. You know, he was widely blamed for the party's worse than expected midterm performance among many of his preferred candidates who lost key Senate races. He had a controversial dinner, as we know, with white supremacist Nick Fuentes and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago. He suggested parts of the Constitution should be thrown out and he be reinstated president. And so I think that, and at the time, many prominent GOP lawmakers came out and criticized him publicly in all of those instances. And in the wake of this indictment news, they have been forced to rally behind him. So I think that a lot of Americans have sort of forgotten about those controversies. And, DeSantis and Trump have both been ramping up their campaigns as well in the past several months. So a lot is changing very quickly in this primary race.